Welcome to the Funky Food Simulation. In this simulation, you will collect and analyze data regarding an outbreak of food poisoning. You'll then make a hypothesis about which restaurant is responsible for the outbreak. Next, you'll calculate the relative risk of infection and see if your hypothesis is correct. To start the simulation, click the Sim tab. Next, click on each of the houses in the sim and record where the occupants ate and whether or not they were infected with the poisonous bacteria or toxins that cause food poisoning. Note that you will click on the white counter box above the name of the restaurant in one of the two gray boxes, either infected on the left or not infected on the right. Each time you click on the counter button, it will increase by 1. If you make a mistake, you can use the undo button, which is the curved arrow. Once you have recorded the data for each house, close the information window that opened on the house and move on to the next house. The sim will not allow you to move on to another house until you record your data. Clicking on the Reset button will erase all the data and reset the sim to another case. After you've collected the data for all 100 houses, click on the Analyze button on the bottom left side of the screen. You will see a case number and then a box with a drop-down arrow for you to make your hypotheses. Click on the down arrow, then choose which restaurant you think is responsible for the outbreak. To fill in the data boxes, click on the question mark for an explanation of what goes into the data box. Under the heading Infected, in the top box Exposure, input the number of people who ate at the restaurant you think is responsible for the food poisoning and were infected. If you need to see your data from the previous screen, click on the Back button. Click on the Analyze button to go forward to analyze the page. Next, go down to the data box underneath, which would be in the Infected column and No Exposure row. Input the number of people who did not eat at the restaurant you chose for your hypothesis but were infected. Now go to the column Not Infected in the row Exposure and input the number of people who ate at the restaurant you think is the culprit but were not infected. In the row No Exposure, input the number of people who did not eat at the suspected restaurant and were not infected. Now click on the Calculate RI button on the bottom left-hand corner of the sim. You can also click on the Help with RI button for help with risk of infection and the Interpret RI button for help with interpreting the relative risk of infection.